Hello, and welcome to the very first official, as yet unnamed stream of Janity Craftily. I am supposed to be taking a half day today because I have not been feeling the most physically well. I'm a little off. My throat is hurting. My brain is foggy. And so I was like, okay, we've got like 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's 4 hours. That is a half day of work. And so I sat down to prepare for the stream at 1 p.m. thinking, oh, it'll take, 15 minutes and then I'll do other things. But no, it did take the entire time because I've got a camera here, I've got a light, I've got a microphone. I don't know how to use any of these things. So if something is too loud, if something is too quiet, let me know, please. We did a beautiful beta stream last week where I got the very helpful information from Max Marie and Ebri123 that if you mark your content as for kids, it won't let people comment on it, which is very reasonable, but not exactly what I'm looking for. I'm about to start our Persona 5 Jazz Cafe mix, which is going to be an excellent bop. Oh yes, this is fantastic. Today I am drinking tea from a wonderful set that was gifted to me from my dear Aunt Joan. It did not have the mountains on it when I received it, but during one day in my early grad school years, when I was feeling a little sad, a little less than ideal, I started listening to Helplessness Blues by the Fleet Foxes. I got out some little paints to paint ceramics with, and I just painted mountains because that's what the Fleet Foxes make me think of, is mountains. So today, during the stream, we're going to be making a tiger with tiny weapons. The reason that is our craft of the day is because I proposed multiple potential activities. One was make a tiger for the Lunar New Year. It is the year of the tiger coming up. One was make some tiny weapons because I had just made a Buster Sword for Cloud from Final Fantasy VII and a bow for Hawkeye from Hawkeye, and also like the Avengers and stuff, but mostly Hawkeye. And the third, I think, was stickers, like making stickers. No one was super jazzed about that option, which is A-okay. And we got votes from Felted Flying Fox for the tiger, a vote from Spicy Salsa for the tiny weapons, and one vote from Max Marie for a tiger with tiny weapons, which is the clear superior option that, brings all the votes together in a way to make everyone happy. So that is what we will be doing today. I think I'm going to start by making the tiger plushie so that once we have like the size of the plushie, we can make proportional little weapons for our tiny adventurer to go out and adventure with. The process for designing a plush is twofold for me. You're getting a little glimpse into the process. Usually I will do a little sketch, a little doodle to see what it looks like, and then I will get into the nitty-gritty of exactly how many stitches per thing and what style of whatnot. So as I am drawing the sketch for this little tiger, please let me know how you are doing today, what you are up to. I also would love, even if you do not have anything to say, if you could just put a little, like an XD or something, because unfortunately the debacle from last week has left me very nervous about whether or not the chat is actually on. So that would be greatly appreciated. Okay. So the basic outline, I'm going to be using my chibi design as the base. It looks a little something like this, where you've got a big ol' head, little nubby legs, and then some arms. And I have this in a variety of styles, but I like using it as the base for lots of different things because it makes the design process a lot easier And if you have things that are like roughly this shape, which is a lot of like stylized animals or like human or humanoid characters, like all my little superheroes, all my little avatar characters, those are in this style, which I call the chibi. And the eyes are very important. 2 big ol' eyes, nice and low onto the head, because that is the amigurumi style. Amigurumi is a Japanese word. I don't recall the exact translation, but it means like any sort of like cloth or knit or crochet material that has like plush inside. So this is the chibi base. For a tiger, we will definitely need a tail. We will need some ears. I think since it will have like little stripes, we probably won't need the added detail of like a little nose or some whiskers or the little like, you know, that dealio. So all I need to do is look up a reference picture of a tiger. I apologize, you all will not be able to see this. Wow, tigers are ferocious and adorable. Okay. So it looks like the ears have like a little layer to them, and the inside is white and the outside is black. I do not usually color in my sketches because once I start buying markers or colored pencils or something, I will want to exactly match one to every single color of yarn that I have, and it will get out of hand very quickly. So I don't do that. I usually would just label, and then also I can look at it and say, oh, it's black, white, orange, whatever other colors we're using, and know the colors of yarn that I need. It looks like some of these little dudes have like a white paw, maybe. Yeah, I think we'll add a tentative white question mark to the little paws. I'm gonna make those lines extra thick so I know they're not the stripes. Add some stripes to the tail. Orange, of course. So this is what we got to work with currently right now. I think that I think this is a good place to start. The one thing that does need to be decided, black stripes, is what technique will be used to make these little stripes. So there are a variety of techniques in crochet and other fiber arts that you can use to like add a detail on top, especially with stripes. So I'm going to demonstrate a few different ones, see what they look like, see which one might work best for this little tiger friend. So I'm making some swatches. Here's swatch 1. Here's swatch 2. You can tell the technique for that one already. And I am just about to finish up with swatch 3. If I can find my scissors. There are so many things on this desk right now, I tell you. If I can't find my scissors, that will be a problem. But the 3 potential techniques that I'm like adept enough with to be able to use them for this little tiger are felting, embroidery, and color switching. So color switching is when you switch the color of yarn that you are using. partway through, and so that's how you get like a stripe effect. It's how, if you've ever seen like sweaters with different colors, or like the V style where it's like a bunch of V's on top of each other that are different colors. Oh, I truly do not know where these scissors have gone. One moment. I did a whole kerfuffle earlier. So who knows? I'm gonna use these very much not designed for yarn scissors in the meantime and see if they will work. Good enough for now. So I like using a bunch of different techniques and like learning different things to like not just crochet, especially within the realm of fiber arts, because fiber artists have been doing things for so long that there are so many different like techniques and styles and tools available. And it's even if I don't like end up like officially using something, it is really, really fun to explore and see what people have done. Oh, also, I am drinking a delicious green tea this afternoon. I did discover that as I was thinking about when the stream would be, which is 2 to 4 in my time zone, that I could not drink the most caffeinated of drinks because I will be staying up extremely late tonight if this was, for example, black tea. So that is a slight limitation. I'm gonna start with felting. This is a technique that I primarily know of because of felted flying fox. I just got this new felting needle. I waited until there was a craft sale at my not very local craft store and got a bunch of wool felting stuff. But felted flying fox does a lot of three-dimensional felting, which is very cool and which is very cool and very much not the level I'm at. Hold on. Pop. So this is a schmancy needle with a little holder and everything. But if you look at, maybe you can see, I can barely see them as I'm looking at it, but there are little barbs along this needle so that when you stab it through something, it'll catch. Let me show you. It'll catch on the little fibers that are in the black yarn, and it'll shove them into the fibers that are in the orange yarn, and so that they will be like bound together. This little block is so that I do not stab the table or my hand. It's also very, very useful for like making earring backs, like the paper pieces, not the actual earrings themselves. So you need those like two little holes in the backing of an earring thing, so you can just pop that on here and then pop pop. So if you'll see on the back, the fibers have poked through, and if we really wanted to pull it out, we definitely could, but it's secure enough for a decorative item. And so let's see what this will look like. I do have definitely a short list in my head of what of the items I create are like child / pet safe, because I usually like to, on the crochet items I make, like sew the pieces together very, very deliberately and like very tightly with lots and lots of extra stitches and extra layers, because several of my very first amigurumi were like a single terrible knot that got really floppy and undone pretty much immediately. So I tend to be very secure in sewing pieces together. But I do have several techniques like felting that I would not feel very good about giving an item. Like, if I am to use felting on this tiger, I would not give this tiger to like a 1-year-old, because the felt could very easily come off with rigorous play and get eaten by said child, and that would be no good whatsoever for the child, for the parent, or for me. So, also removable pieces, obviously, like if it has a tiny hat. Okay, so that is about what a felted stripe is going to look like. Oh boy. The scissor challenge might prove to be, there we go. So there you go. The little strands are all on there. You can see it poking through the back. If this is the design that we use, this part will be facing the inside where like the plush bits are, and so that shouldn't be too much of a problem for both aesthetic and durability reasons. So we've got color change, we've got felting, and our final stripe is embroidery. Let's get out the pin cushion with my little needles inside. These are the felting needles that I usually use. You got to see the inaugural beginning of this felting needle, which I will put right back away. One thing I like about felting as well is that particularly in comparison to embroidery, you can do a lot more details with it, because with embroidery you can only really stick your needle like so many different, like there are little holes between the stitches and you can kind of go halfsies, but it's a little difficult, and you can just put those any which way. Additionally, it is something like punch needle embroidery, where you do not have to cut the thread beforehand, which cutting the thread beforehand and then doing the like whoosh, pulling the yarn through are my two least favorite parts about embroidery, which is why I don't do a lot of it. Also, hello to Hoshi Forever and Loop. I am indeed making the tiger. Loop is also known as Felted Flying Fox, who is the one from whom I learned that felting was a thing. We do not need this little friend anymore. Also, hello to both of you. Thank you very much for joining the chat, because I mentioned this earlier. I did not know last week for my test stream that the chat was off until afterward, where EB123 and Max Marie let me know that I had accidentally set the content as for kids. So thank you for joining in the chat. Let me know how you are doing today. What are you up to? How is your day going? So, embroidery, we're probably going to do like a big long stitch as a stripe, something like this. Maybe make a smaller one. One of the perks of embroidery is that you can get really straight lines, and it is a lot more secure. For example, I would be willing to give this to a 1-year-old. And you can do sort of fancy and fun stitches with it that you usually could not in other mediums. Here's some stripies. Now that I'm thinking about it, I have a feeling that embroidery would be a little tough on the like tiny round ones, like the arms or the tail, because those are going to be maybe like that wide, and so doing stripes around would just be a bunch of loops that are pulled in. Oh, Loop is at work but ran out of things to do. I personally am very happy that you ran out of things to do, but I am sorry. I imagine that the snow has continued to be a problem for the folks with mobility issues, as you continue to stay open in these very snowy times. I am glad that you were able to join, though. It brings me great joy. All right. So, as I take a sip of this green tea and consider my options, please let me know. 1 is color change, 2 is felting, and 3 is embroidery. Which style of stripe you think will work best for this little tiger friend? And this pot of tea is not just for show. It is also for holding more tea. I do anticipate having to take a bathroom break between now and the end of the stream, but it's all worth it. We have a very predictable vote from Loop for felting. Hoshi Forever, if you want to contribute as well, you have until I finish this cup of tea to do so. Also, let me know if I'm mispronouncing your name. All right, the time has come. Felting is the winner. So the stripes will actually be likely the last thing that goes on in the case of felting. They would be the first thing that goes on in the case of a color change. And these little swatches I can use as stuffing for future projects, or perhaps even this project, now that I think about it. I like to ball up the extra little ends or little swatches of things that I don't use for projects and reuse them, because why not? So if we go back to our original sketch, I typically do the head first and then a separate little piece for the body, and then adding on pieces for arms, tail, and ears. I typically take notes as I go. I do have, oh yeah, no worries, Loop. Work is, you know, it is important. The stream is important, but in a very different way, perhaps. So I will be not offended in the slightest. So usually when I take notes, I'll say all the different pieces. If you can't read this, Tiger Chibi Plush is the title of what I'm making. Head is the first piece. I happen to have been working on chibis recently, and so I have memorized the exact sequence of stitches that is necessary for them. So when you write out crochet, as a delightful meme I saw recently says, you have little shorthands. So for example, the first row is 5 SC in MC. SC is a single crochet. MC stands for magic circle, which is a technique I will show you in just a minute. Here's true Janity confessions. I don't know how to do a magic circle. I have seen so many videos trying to explain how to do a magic circle, how easy and wonderful a magic circle is, and I never figured it out. So what I do instead is I make one slip knot and another slip knot based off of that, and it gets approximately the same effect. So the Janky Janity method and the magic circle method will both get you one little loop that your hook is in, and then one big loop that can be made smaller or bigger, like a little lasso. So if you've seen like round things like this, usually how they are made, if they are crocheted, is they do the magic circle and they make a bunch of stitches. So instead of making them in a row where it's one after the other, they make them in a circle, so where they curve around. So let's do the 5 single crochet in this magic circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oops. I just went back down to 4 because I pulled too hard. Alright. So you have 5 stitches all in a little row. And then when I pull this tight, the stitches are going to curl around, being a nice little circle. See? Hoshi Forever says, I do love the times where my fingers just forget how to hold the yarn for a magic circle. My fingers never knew how to hold the yarn, so congratulations. So in this next row, instead of turning around and going again, we go and then we jump back over and then start working in spiral is what it's called, because it does end up sort of spiraling around. I will note in my little book, I tend to mark a new row of stitches with a little slash because I learned here's a fun fact. Oh, Hoshi Forever is Christine. Hello. You were very friendly and also knowledgeable in crochet. So I did narrow the list down to maybe like 2 people it could have been. But hello, Christine. Christine is a lovely crochet friend, also known as McStuffy's PhD on Etsy and social media and elsewhere, and does some excellent crochet work. We used to be buddies. We are still buddies. We used to be bookstore buddies, because we worked at the same bookstore, but I will reveal no more than that. I like to mark my new rows with a slash, and then ink is increase. So increase just means instead of putting 1 stitch in each new one, where we would do 5 stitches and then 5 more stitches, if you do that, you will just end up with a very tiny tube that extends all the way down, which would be great for an arm or a tail, but is not perhaps so great for a head. So we're going to add stitches as we go to be able to go out in that spiral. So increase for the first stitch, increase for the second stitch, increase for the third stitch, increase for the fourth stitch, and increase the 5th stitch. So you may have noticed that I did not write how many increases, because these are my personal notes and not any sort of pattern notes. My notation is that if you write something, you just repeat it over and over again. But you all do not need to parse these notes. They are just for me. So what I will do is I will go back through, for example, this is Boba Fett. I will go back through and then type all of these up in a little document and then interpret them from Janity speak to someone can read and make something out of this. And then I will test the pattern, and if people want it, I will post it. So again, because I have been making these little chibis recently, I do remember the pattern I've been using. I also like to mark the color that each thing is. Sometimes it's very obvious. For example, all of these things will be orange because it is a little tiger. But even if I have the pattern sort of in my brain, I do like to write it down just so I have a visual. So these are for me. I'm very tempted to hum along with the music, but I have been told accurately that my humming is not easy to listen to at times. And also there's a strong chance that it will not line up with the music as it is playing, because I am listening to it from my computer and you are listening to it from a stream and with lag and all of that jazz. But we are currently hearing the wonderful tunes of the Persona 5 chill mix. You can see the creator down in the description if you so choose. My partner, who on the stream I do refer to as Garbage Goat, because that is the name he has chosen for himself online. He has been playing Persona 5 Strikers, which is a sequel to Persona 5, which is a game I love very dearly and has excellent music. Of both the chill and the like, let's go fight a boss variety. Typically I will use a little stitch marker to mark the end of a row. So if you see row 1, row 2, let me do that a little closer actually. Row 1, and then row 2, and then I know where it ends. There are these little plastic like safety pin looking things that you can use, but there are none that I can see within range, and I have headphones in and I'm very attached to this setup right now, so I'm using a technique that works just as well, where you pull a little scrap of yarn of a different color through the stitch to mark it. So back to Persona 5. There will be no spoilers for either Persona 5 the game or Persona 5 Strikers the game. But both games are extremely stylish. If you just Google Persona 5, you will see... oh dear, where's my yarn gone? One moment. Ah! That's going on my laptop for safekeeping. If you Google Persona 5, you will immediately see the very stylish like menu screens and battle scenes and things. So aside from being a pretty good story with a handful of sizable faults, it also has excellent music and excellent graphics from like an art direction standpoint. So here is row 3. You can see that I've gone all the way up to the stitch that has the little color yarn in it, and so I can keep track of where I'm going. I would so love if my phone had an automatic focus, so I do apologize that you're seeing this slightly blurry. I also apologize that my throat appears to be giving up the ghost low when we're only a quarter of the way in. So if it becomes absolutely atrocious, I will either A, drink copious amounts of tea, which I'm already doing, or B, maybe have a little quieter stream and let the Persona 5 music speak for itself. If you do have any other suggestions for either things that you would like to see on stream, or things like the music is slightly too loud, or I'd like to hear you talk about such and such, that is what the chat is for. I am delighted that the chat is working so that we can do this. For those of you who were not here in the intro when I explained it, the chat was just straight up not on last time because I set the content as for kids. Because I forgot that when you set the content for kids, it turns off comments, which makes sense if someone comes in with not kid-friendly language. See you, Christine! I hope the rest of your day is excellent. And thank you for stopping in. It warmed my heart. But yes, stream suggestions are very, very welcome. My hope for streams in general, and also like Jana T. Craftly on the whole this year, is for it to be much more community-based, because in the past year, before Omicron, in the past year before Omicron, I went to a lot of in-person events where I met a lot of really cool people that have, you know, things in common with like what I do, whether it's that they love playing tabletop RPGs, that they're like passionate about queer advocacy, that they're crafters, and I genuinely met probably like 10 people that I could be best friends with at conventions or pride festivals or the like. I'm just like, oh, this is so lovely. It was probably my favorite part of Jana T. Craftly in 2021. Like, there were lots of other things that happened for me. The Bernie explosion was in 2021, which is wild to me. My Etsy sales went up significantly because of the Bernie explosion in 2021, which enabled me to do this and other freelance work full time. But I think that the events where I met people was a definite highlight. So my hope is that those kinds of lovely folks can gather together, share resources with one another, comment into things on streams, and so that I can see more of them, because you all are very cool. It is lovely. After nearly every event, there would be at least one person who would become like a semi-regular on social media. Like Grand Rapids Comic Con in particular had a handful of folks who I would be like, yes, come join me, and then they would comment on several Instagram posts. And I remember you all. All right, we are getting to a vital point in this tiger head. Oh, that's not very visually appealing. My apologies for blocking the webcam. We are getting it to an important point in the making of the head. So what I have been doing is spacing out just regular single crochet stitches with some increase stitches, which is where you do 2 stitches in the next row in the 1 stitch from the previous row. So it ends up looking something like this. In crochet terminology, we like to mark stitches as like a little plus. So if you've got 3 stitches in the first row, and then you do another stitch, and then you do 2 in the next one, and then 1, that's 4, and you do 1, and then 2, and then maybe 1, and then 2, and that's 5, and so on and so forth, and it can go out. But what we have done here, and by we I mean me, I am going to try to get better at the use of the semi-royal we, is started with 5 stitches in the middle, and then each row out added 5 more stitches, which is approximately the like formula recipe that can be used to expand outward in a spiral like this. So starting from the middle, you can kind of see, and so on and so forth, the spiral going out. You can also see, because I have put the increased stitches at the same point, it's starting to look a little bit like a pentagon, where the points are each of the increases stacked on top of one another. That can be used to great effect. There are some excellent patterns for hexagon sweaters where you can like fold the hexagons in a cool origami way to make a sweater. There are patterns for hexagon blankets where you put like hexagons together to make a blanket. Or other like cool honeycomb, or the recent telescope that was released has like a mesh that is honeycomb or hexagon looking. And so Bree, who is a fiber arts friend of mine, who is also a science communicator, extremely cool person, I would love to have her on stream one of these days, sent me a bunch of images of people who had crocheted hexagons and made them into the telescope, which is just delightful. So that can be used to advantage, but sometimes if you have like a hat or something where you just want it to be round, what you will do is sort of switch. So maybe on this row you'll do the increase here, and then you'll scooch it over a few stitches, and then you'll scooch it back, so it sort of evens out. But for something this size, you can fudge it a little bit and it will be fine, and it will look round, and only perhaps the most particular of crocheters will be able to tell. So what I'm going to do is, because this is getting really far back down in comparison with the other stitches, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to weave it back through the most recent stitch at the end of that row. And this is the part of the pattern where I'll do those 5 rows of single crochet. So what will happen is this circle will have rows added on top, so it'll start to curl in because I won't be increasing anymore. And so it will start to look like a little hat or a little bowl, and it will become the tiger's head. I also moved my teapot because as visually pleasing as a little corner teapot was, it was not very pleasing for not bonking into while I was trying to crochet, so it has moved. Something I did also want to say at the beginning of the stream, but I forgot because I was a little flustered that I forgot the music. But it did enable me to introduce the music, is a thanks to A Simple Jen and Ink Spiller from the Rem Alternus community, who gave me some excellent tips for starting a crafting stream, what they do. A Simple Jen is from Geekforge, who streams on twitch.tv/thegeekforge, I believe, and who had a lovely crafting stream that is currently on hiatus, but gave me some excellent recommendations. So thank you, A Simple Jen. Thank you to Ink Spiller as well. This music, I believe, is like a cafe style sort of thing. So they have occasionally put in little clinks of glasses, which is a little unnerving. Oops, a little unnerving, because I too have glasses that I am clinking. You might have heard it just there. So this is the part where I can usually go pretty mindless, because it is just the same stitch one after another, and because it is worked in spiral, I do not even have to pay attention to when the row ends. I just have to make sure that I know when I've gotten to 5 whole rows. And I will slow down my stitching later for sure. I'm just barreling through it as fast as possible because this is not particularly interesting to watch. And I would like to finish the tiger before the end of the stream. But if not, we can keep going a little extra longer. Or we can do a 2-parter. Ooh. Let me know what you think I should do. If I do a 2-part stream, today is the 14th. Ah, yes, I love easy 7s. So the next one will be the 21st. Just as a sneak preview, the one after that will be 3 days before the 25th anniversary of the original release of Final Fantasy VII. And so on that day, I will be putting together some of the Final Fantasy VII character chibis I've been working on. I recently finished the parts for Barrett, Tifa, and I am remaking Aerith. You will see probably a post on social media pretty soon with my original Aerith, or Aeris, depending on your translation. But I'm going to make a Cloud and a Sephiroth as well. If I have extra time, I will make a Vincent and a Yuffie, and probably a Mog, even though Mog isn't in that game as a character. He is definitely in it as a summons and in some mini games. Mog is a little Moogle. Moogles are like the mascot creatures. Moogle Mog is like the Pikachu of Final Fantasy, but not in that way. They're just little. They all look different in every game, but Mog is a little white creature with a little red puffball on his little head. He is a playable character in 6, I believe. My friend has been playing through 6. Alright, so you can see it's starting to look like a dome rather than a circle, as we are adding rows but not adding stitches. This could be a tiny hat if we wanted, but it shall be a tiger. I have a secret, not very secret, ulterior motive for making this tiger, and it's that I am potentially going to be making a whole bunch of tigers for a New Year's care package thing that Fire Arts Collaborative in Kalamazoo is doing, and it's going to be the Lunar New Year, which I believe is in the first week of February. So I have to design a plush if I'm going to make a whole bunch of them. And to me, the design process is genuinely interesting. I like seeing the different ways that people come up with to bring something from concept to reality, the different like bumps and challenges along the way to do that. And so that is why I am designing it on stream instead of simply making it on stream. However, that may also lead to running out of time to make said tiny weapons, which would be very sad. But I'm not going to jinx it. I'm going to crochet as quickly as I can, and we're going to make as much of a tiger as is possible. And then once I have the design down and I've taken my little notes, I'm going to just make so many to share with the youth at Fire. When I do make a lot of the same plush in a row, I will try and speed up the process a little bit, You can only do it so much. It's not like making jewelry or stickers in batches where like it becomes much easier to make them in bulk, because you do have to like individually crochet every stitch. But what I like to do when I'm making a whole bunch of them is if they have separate parts, for example, this one will have a tail, 2 arms, and 2 ears. I like to make a bunch of parts all in a row. So like, let's say I'm making 10 tigers. Then I will sit down and make 20 ears, because by the time I'm on like my 4th or 5th ear, I'll have that ear pattern down pat. I can just do it as fast as my fingers will go. I can maybe listen to a podcast, watch Garbage Goat play Persona 5 Strikers, or, you know, whatever else. I do sort of categorize in my mind different levels of paying attention crochet. For example, like design work, I probably want to be fairly like conscientious of. I could maybe listen to a podcast while I do this. I can obviously stream as I'm doing it, but I don't think I could like be on the phone with a friend as I'm designing. I might be able to like make something that I've already designed while I'm on the phone, but like the creative thing uses the same part of my brain that conversation does, and so perhaps you will see I do have plans for guests to come on the show, which I'm very excited about. I've gotten several lovely emails in response in a very short time, which just brought me so much joy, from folks who want to guest. And so you will see me potentially blue screen as I try to have a conversation while crafting. All right. So the chibi head, after you do the circle, has 5 rows. So you may be able to count on top of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the number of rows we are doing. And after that, I'm going to move this little simple stitch marker up a little bit. After that, we're going to start narrowing it down once again. So it'll end up looking, it'll have this little hemisphere thing on the other side as well. So it should be close to a perfect ball. The first like round ball that I ever made was for a BB-8 pattern from, I must have made it in 2018 because I brought it to the Pride Festival 2018. Hold on. I'm going to hold the Pride Festival BB-8 anecdote while I explain what I'm doing. So what we were doing on the way up is we were adding stitches to make it bigger, and so now we're going to be subtracting stitches to make it smaller. There are a variety of ways you can do that, but the one that I like to use that's like the most zippy for my fingers as I'm going is single crochet 2 together, which is abbreviated as single crochet 2 together, but I just write it as deck or decrease, and I know what that means in my brain. So there are 2 stitches that I'm going to work into, but the next row will only have 1 stitch. So sort of the reverse of what we did over here. Let's say there are 3, and then you put them together into 1 stitch, and then another stitch. So now you go down to 2, and so on and so forth. If you start with 5 stitches, and then you go down 1 every time. So currently we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 stitches. And so we're going to bring it all the way back down to 5 by reducing each row by 5 stitches very gradually, very evenly, so it looks nice and round. And they have the same sort of separation as they do on the way up. So for example, there are 4 regular stitches between every decrease stitch, just the same that there were 4 regular stitches between every increase stitch on the last row on the way up. Sometimes when I'm writing notes, I will forget that you have to reverse it, and so I will just start increasing, but again, and so it ends up making a little like a bucket hat looking thing, which are trendy once again now, or perhaps they are past trendy and I'm out of the loop. But that is not what we are going for today. 2, 3, 4. And then partway through the narrowing process, and this is something that happens in a lot of, amigurumis, is you have to stuff it partway through, or add the eyes partway through. Oh, I have done some bad math. That'll be fine. It'll still look good. Because otherwise it'll just close and be a circle or a sphere filled with nothing, and it will just be a flat little tiger, and that is no good. So, but back to BB-8. BB-8 was the first sphere that I ever made. I found it on a pattern online that was for free. That was when I was still learning crochet, and so I really liked learning through patterns, the way like I learned to play piano through playing different songs, and every time there's a new technique in a song, you would learn it. Like the books were structured that way. I learned it as a small child, but I sort of self-taught my crochet by picking a pattern that looked easy enough, but maybe a little stretched me a little bit, and then learning whatever the new techniques were in that pattern, which is exactly what I'm doing with knitting now. I did not think I would become a knitter, but lo. So this BB-8 had a very precise technique for spacing out those increase and decrease stitches, because the final BB-8 body was like this big, perhaps. So if you would have done like the regular increase at every point, it would have just looked like a hexagon that had turned into a ball, which is not what BB-8 looks like. So they had very particularly spaced out numerical, like 5 single crochet, 1 decrease, 2 single crochet, 1 decrease, something like that. And so I had to keep very rapt attention on the pattern. And then that little BB-8 has been with me at every single event I have gone to since. So it was at Pride 2018, and its inaugural maiden voyage, perhaps. It went to a local craft show in 2019. It came back to Pride, the local Pride here in 2019. There was a brief hiatus for reasons. It came to Lowell Pride in 2021. It came to the Grand Rapids Comic Con in 2021. And then it came to the Fulton Street Farmers Market in 2021, where someone bought him, and it was hard to give him away because he had been with me for so many years. And basically every time someone would come up to my booth or table or whatever setup I had, oh, that's not very well, there's my little spider hand. They'd be like, oh my gosh, BB-8, or sometimes, oh my gosh, R2-D2. I did not correct them. So it was sad to let him go. It was the last thing that I was selling that I had designed myself. So then after the BB-8 sold, from then on out, I could be like, oh, I designed everything myself, which was nice, but BB-8. So at this point is when I bust out the safety eyes. This tin is from Hoshi Forever. It used to hold green tea, but I ate all of it, or I drank all of it because it was delicious. And now it holds safety eyes. These are the size of safety eyes that I use for my chibi plushies, so I have a lot of them. I also use this size for my pun whales, like the bisexual and the pansexual, along with any other things that need like bigger eyes. These are 12 millimeter safety eyes. The way that they work is they've got a little whoop. Oh man, the focus comes back. They've got a little ridges on them and kind of like a washer that goes on the end. And so if you stick that on, it will not come undone. But if you stick that on with some crochet in between it, this is not coming off. And that is precisely what we are going to do for our tiger. So as I said on the sketch, I like to put the eyes low because that is the amigurumi style. A little too low maybe. It'll still be cute. So I tend to put them in, maybe move a stitch down, move a stitch up, poof it out as best I can to see what it'll look like when it's actually finished. And I'll imagine it. Let's see, maybe we can add a row on there. Move them up one. Ooh, that looks good too. Any opinions, chat? I know it probably looks exactly the same. And then you take the little washer, and this takes some doing sometimes, but usually I will just flip, and then you can stick the washer on the end that is on the inside. I did receive some nifty little tools that prevent you from like squeezing your hands and pushing them together for safety eyes, but I don't use them very often because usually I don't always crochet with a table underneath me, and you do kind of need a hard surface to like push the tool down. But then if I have a hard surface, I end up using my fingers. So perhaps I will get into the habit of using these little safety eye doodads. If you are just joining or have not yet said hello, and you are comfortable doing so, please say hi in the chat. I would love to greet whomever is here. Okay. So, we've got our eyes on. This little tin can leave. Now is the part for stuffing. So I use, this is organic cotton. For crochet or other amigurumi folks who are interested, I can send you a link to where I get this. It is an Etsy shop that has excellent customer service and shipping times and all of that jazz. I have been using this ever since I realized that polyfill, which is what I had been using, is just plastic. It's just made out of plastic, and I don't love that, so cotton it is. Okay, I like to stuff it like a medium tightness so that it's still got some squish to it, which is very, you know, lovable and cuddly, but not so squishy that it feels limp. And that's sort of a going by feel for each plush. Now the hard part now is that I have to crochet around the fluff without like catching the fluff in the hook, because then you will see little white bits in the stitches. Like there's a little, it's caught on it right now. If I bring it through, it will look like I'm trying to create white stripes, which is not what tigers have. Oh, I'm not humming along with the music. Hello, Thomas. Thank you. My layout is a combination of a bunch of different folks that I've seen. I know that the Geek Forge has a really excellent layout where she has the cam facing her and then the top down facing her project, which I really liked. And then I do not recall the name of the streamer, but the streamer that Ink Spiller sent me, whose streams are in French, so you might like them, Thomas. Not that you will like any content that is in a language that you speak. But had these really cute little frames around every part, like the top down and the face cam. And I really liked the idea of frames. So I found some that were kind of the Janity Craftly aesthetic. I pieced them together and I did the little, like the watercolor background in the program that I use to do all my digital watercolor designs. So it's a little bit cohesive. Oops. See, if I were to take this stitch now, I would take that little bit of white with me. Okay, how do I undo this? Just start over. So the head of the tiger is finally complete. Head of the tiger sounds like a translated for copyright JoJo stand. Hello, Mandel. Wow, I'm delighted by the folks that have shown up today. Please let us know how your day is going, what you're up to, if you feel so inclined. And thank you for saying hi and coming into the stream. So here's our tiger head. We will add little bits and bobs in just a moment. So back to the sketch. Got the head. Now we need the body part, which is going to be like a torso and legs all in one. And then little arms, a little tail, little ears. All right. Where has my yarn gone? Okay, well, we can use this little guy instead. I think I'm going to use the standard. So body, also in orange, and then I'll just write standard so that we can maybe have time to make the little weapons today. So I did a little walkthrough of my usual note-taking technique earlier, if y'all missed it. So we will use the janky Janity version of the magic circle once again. But this time it's going to be 12 stitches for the body, which is a little cheat that I have done, because you could start with 6 and then add them, but when you sew the body onto the head, that first row gets covered up anyway, so I just start with 12 because why waste yarn and time? It also is very nice because the 12 stitches don't have to like tighten up together like closely. They can have a little bit of gap between them, which is perfect because it means I don't have to stuff as I go like the head. So if I'm crocheting somewhere where I do not have my stuffing with me, I can just make a bunch of little bodies, which sounds kind of iffy now that I say it out loud. There was a time where I referred to my safety eyes as eyeballs. So I'd be like, I've got my tin of eyeballs with me. I stopped doing that. Okay. So we're close to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just like with the head, the magic circle, we will pull this row so it curls up together. So pull, nice. And again, we do not need it any tighter than this because it is going to be sewn right onto the head like that. So you see kind of what I mean, that you're not going to see that whole part in the middle. And it truly is the perfect size for stuffing. I do quite enjoy this Persona 5 mix. As I said earlier, there's a good mix of like chill vibin' songs and like let's go fight a boss songs. And this is all of the chill vibin' songs. We're gonna do a few increases just to get a little slope of... Don't ask me about the eyeballs. I will answer not realizing. Oh no. Yeah, I would be like, oh, here's my like bag of arms. But eyeballs was definitely the worst one. Yeah. Here's my tin of eyeballs. So we're adding a few increases to make a little slope that would look kind of like a shoulder. I don't know if, I think shoulders are what they're called on like an animal. So I started these chibi designs, making them with a little bit that like flares out that you sew the arms into, which works great if you have something like Invincible, Mark Grayson from Invincible. Invincible is his hero name and the name of the show, so it's a little confusing. He has like this like sloping yellow thing that goes across his shoulders, and so it works great for something like that. But if it's just like a tiger who's orange all around, it's much easier to just make a little arm and then put it on the body. So that's what I'm doing. All right. I have sloped out enough. So that's enough of a little shrug, a little shoulder. I'm gonna grab my piece of differently colored yarn to use as my poor man's stitch marker. I said this during the test scream. Janet T. Dr. Frankenstein, she just works in yarn. Wow. So I create the body parts and I put them together. I feel like Dr. Frankenstein took body parts that were already there. So I'm like a combination of Dr. Frankenstein and some other horrible scientist. Wow. I already know the plot for Resident Evil 8. This is perfect. Yeah, there are a handful of fictional properties that have some sort of like person who stitches things together. There's like weaving time and fate is a big mythological one, but there's a horror short story about a witch who lives in the woods, and brief content warning for body horror for the next 30 seconds. Kills people to make thread out of their bodies that she can stitch into her like son who is dying. Oh, it's so creepy. Using like making an old lady knitting be like incredibly intimidating and scary. That's peak horror. That was great. But then also there are some like Stone Free or Stone Ocean from JoJo Part 6 is a stand who like has these threads that can be like go out to grab something or weave together. Spider-Man has a little bit of that going on as well, with the stickiness of his webs making things a little more versatile. But yeah, he's woven parachutes out of his webs, surfboards out of webs, trampolines and things to catch people and those sorts of things. I'm pretty sure he like made a key out of his webs at one point. I read a lot of Spider-Man comics growing up, so I loved that sort of like nonsense MacGyver stuff. All right, see, this body is working up much faster than the head, which is why I started with the head. Okay. So I happen to remember the exact number of rows, which is very convenient. I did not plan it that way, but since I've been working on chibis, I remember. So we've got 5 rows, and this is the part where it's going to split into the 2 legs. So we'll see 2 legs on the bottom. And the way that I do that, I like to have as few cuts as possible. So what I'm gonna do, I know for a fact that there are 18 stitches on this bad boy. Hey Ram! Lovely for you to join as well. Is this Sarah on the account, I'm assuming? So I'm gonna do 9 stitches, which is half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I started here. I did 9 stitches to get here. What I'm going to do next to create a leg on this half is I'm going to skip the next 9 stitches and then just start working in there. So instead of having one big circle, I'll have one little circle and then some space for later. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you go. Well, hello Sarah. I'm glad that you can either take a break from unpacking boxes or unpack boxes to the sound of my crafting. We do have an abundance of Rem friends here today. Rem Alternus is a woman-owned, Chicago-based media production company that does a lot of stuff with tabletop RPGs like Shadowrun and Dungeons and Dragons, and is starting to do like podcasts and YouTube videos as well as like streams where people play stuff. My partner, Garbage Goat, got into one of their streams as a player, playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, cool, neat, I'm going to support my spouse and, you know, watch this thing and whatever. Turns out everyone there is great and I love it a lot. So now I have gone to conventions with Rem. I am helping Rem with their Etsy stuff. I've met so many lovely people in person and digitally, and some of those lovely people helped me to have the confidence and know-how to make this stream happen. So thanks to you all. All right. We have made a little tube and extended the tube. Hello, Kale. How are you doing today? I hope all is well. At this point, we are going to tighten it down so that it looks more like a leg than a stub. Why, thank you! Supportive people being excited about each other is a good vibe. So we're going to do a little decrease again. Start bringing it in. Crochet, particularly in comparison with knitting, is very good for doing round shapes. Door noise. For doing round shapes and like bubbles and things like that, much more than like a corner or something like that. Or a square. That is definitely something that you should give to knitting. Knitting is also a much better technique to use when you're trying to curve something, like the heel of a sock. If you want to make socks, do not learn to crochet. There's no reason to do that. And then it comes together and there's a little leg. Beautiful. Now all I have to do is do the same thing on the other side. So what I do here is I make a little knot, and then for things like the mandrake, I will just leave these out and maybe add a few new ones to look like roots. But tigers do not have roots on the end of their appendages, So I'm going to put my hook through, loop the thread around, and then just pull it back. So now it's on the inside, and we can just stuff. Perfect. We still got the stitch marker, which we don't really need anymore. Boop. Oh, I stuffed too well. Time for leg number 2. Leg number 2 is a little bit harder because you've got leg number 1 floating around. But to attach something, you make a little slip knot like you would to start. You attach it to the crochet hook and you duck it through, and ta-da! It's like you've been stitching that way the whole time. Do not take these streams as like a tutorial based thing. I definitely will have like tutorials and things, and I do on this very channel in the future, but this is more of a maybe little techniques if you're a crocheter, or weird things you didn't know about crocheting. Because what I love when I'm looking at other crafters and makers streams is like realizing something I didn't know, like with resin pouring. If you like pour something on a surface and then you use like a blow dryer or something, you can actually take advantage of the fact that the air going out of the blow dryer can push things and make it look like a C or something like that. And I had no idea because I've never done resin, but it's fun to watch people do and explain little techniques like that. So that is what this is for. If you would like to see any particular tutorials or particular techniques shown, please do let me know in the chat or on social media. All of the links and little doodads are in the description, as you have probably come to expect by now. I love seeing what people are excited about or what people like learning, especially folks who are interested in crafting just as a I like to learn how this works thing, rather than I'm going to do it myself. For some reason, that's just very fun to me. All right, we're narrowing down the leg again. I'm going to try, I realized last week that I do a lot of blocking of important visuals with my hands, which is not ideal. And this week I'm realizing I do a lot of jerking around with my hands because I'm not used to doing a craft and having to show someone. The problem is, to do less jerking around, I need to go slower. To go slower, we might not finish this tiger, and that would be a crime. Not a crime. Great sadness. As if many voices cried out and were suddenly silenced. I've never seen episode 3. Alright. This is the completed body. We can do the same technique as before, where we slip the little end out and then boop, weave it back in. Boop. And there we have a little body. In just a bit, we'll sew the head onto the body. But first, play along at home. What do you think the next step is? It's stuffing. So before we sew the body on, it needs to be stuffed. Otherwise, it will just be this floppy little body on this big round head. You'll see that these 12 stitches do make a really nice stuffing thing. Please do keep in mind, as I am stuffing, that I have invited some minors to watch this stream. So comments on the nature of stuffing should be with that in mind. This is true in general, by the way. I do want this to be a space that is open to minors of all ages who are either that I've met through conventions, who I know through community work here in town, or that are interested in crafting and doing stuff. So, boop. Usually I would weave in this long tail, but because I knew this moment would come, I left it out so that now I can take a needle, thread that needle, and sew these together. I love the song Beneath the Mask, which is what is playing right now, but I understand that lyrics and spoken words can be hard to parse, so please let me know if that's like a sensory thing for you, and I will move it to the next song. Alright, so for this part, sewing it together, what I like to do is tuck it under a stitch on the body, bring it through, bring it through, bring it up, tuck it over a stitch on the head, hopefully not catching any stuffing, go back, tuck it over a stitch on the head, pull, and so that when you pull it together, it's nice and tight. See? Well, it'll be tight when I tighten it. So, under the body, over the head, under the body, over the head, under the body stitch, over the head stitch. I have seen a variety of really helpful video tutorials on Pinterest and Instagram for sewing amigurumi. Some of them recommend using pins to hold things in place. I don't do that simply because I never got into the habit of doing so. And so I did not. But that is a viable option, particularly if you are sewing, for example, two arms that need to be in the same spot, or else it will not look like a tiger. All right. Boop, boop. The tiger is coming along. Now with this extra little bit, I'm going to weave it through several of the stitches before I cut it, like that. So that way, it's much less likely that someone could pull on this thread and it could, you know, fall out of some very important stitch and cause problems. All right. Body, head, arms, tail, ears. Now this is where it gets fun. Any votes on what I should do next? Between tails, arms, and ears. Or one tail. Oh, this is the last of the tea and it's somewhat cold. Rip. There goes the tea. Alright, we have no strong feelings. So since we just did the legs, I think it would be fitting to do the arms. There's no good way to use that as a pincushion, so I won't. Boop. Alright. Now, the arms are going to use that magic circle as well, or the Jana T. Jank magic circle. And I like the arms to be a little skinny and then have like a bubble on the end, like a hand. So I'll start with 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll tie them up all together real tight. Now we've got 4. When you've got fewer than 6 stitches with this hook size and yarn size, it's a little hard to then loop back around to the first one. But if you pull it real tight, you can do it. I'm going to add a few increases in there so it's not just 4 stitches all the way up, because that would be a very, very skinny arm. And then usually if I have some character or another, there will be different colors along the arm, like if they have like gloves or a gauntlet or even sleeves at the top. But this is a tiger, And a tiger has no sleeves. Well, this tiger has no sleeves. So we just keep going. Around and around. It gets really tight for these little guys. Because this right now, I had 4 stitches and I increased twice to add 2 stitches. So now we have 6. Oh. And there's only maybe 3 across. So there's a lot of twisting and turning. But now you can kind of see it coming together. It's got a little hand nub on the end, or a paw nub in the case of a tiger, and it's going to keep going up as we add more stitches and create more rows. I'm going to move this because I keep leaning. I think I placed the microphone when the teapot was here, and so I was shifted. But now I am no longer. While I am creating this arm, with the knowledge that we have approximately 30 minutes remaining, and that is enough time to make this tiger for sure. The original plan was to make a tiger and tiny weapons, so what I think will happen is we will make this tiger and a single tiny weapon. So there will be a time when I ask you what weapon I should make. Should this tiger be a ranger? Should this tiger be a fighter? Should this tiger be a cleric? We want shields, we want bows, we want swords, we want tiny swords, we want fencing swords, we want big buster swords. Look into these tigers' eyes and tell me what you think this little guy wants to wield. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're close. All right, I think that's pretty good for an arm. I don't usually stuff the arms because if you stuff the arms too tight, they end up T-posing. Which for some things, for example, I made a Solaire doll, and Solaire has like this kind of pose when he is praising the sun. So unless you're looking for that, you don't want to stuff it too tight. Oh, we have 2 strong votes for fencing swords. This is a fencing tiger. I can see it. Whoop. A one-armed fencing tiger. Alrighty. So I'm gonna wait to sew that on until I have the second arm. And while I am considering, I am going to Google fencing swords. I think what are they called? It's not a rapier. Oh, it's a foil and a saber. Oh man, swords are cool. Oh yeah, like a Princess Bride sword. 'Twas a fool. So a fencing sword's gonna have like an ornate little handle and then like a thin blade. I think this is gonna best be done in wire. And the fun part about this oh, Thomas says that guy looks like he would use the Tigger form, and that involves bouncing, and you need a light sword for that. So true. I'm glad that you all have correctly seen the spirit of this tiger. Apparently the different types are rapier, foil, saber, epee, and I may be mispronouncing this, Schlager? I would love to know what all of these different swords are and what they do and which one you would like me to make specifically. I did not know that you had all of this sword knowledge. Sarah, please tell me and the rest of the chat about this. 1, 2, 3. Oops. Nope, that's the right amount of stitches. I admit, 1 second. I admit, even though I play many video games and tabletop RPGs, I have only the vaguest idea of what the different kinds of swords do. Like broadsword and Zweihander and greatsword are all the same sword in my brain. I know they're not. Or like a claymore? Yeah, a claymore is a greatsword. Ah! There are tiny swords, like rapiers. And then there are big swords, like guts. Guts is not the name of the sword. It's the name of the guy who holds the sword. I know so little about swords. I know what a crossbow is as opposed to a longbow. I don't know the difference between a longbow and a great bow. I know a javelin is bigger than an arrow. That's it. Never play Dungeons and Dragons with me, anybody. I'll just get a mace or a warhammer and bonk things. I have greatly enjoyed making different... It just sort of happened that I made a Cloud with a Buster Sword and a Hawkeye with a bow within like a week of one another, because those were both Christmas gifts for people. And so it got me thinking about all the different kinds of weapons that you could make out of felt and wire and yarn and all of that jazz, which got me thinking about making maybe little tiny adventurers. I've been thinking about an adventure series that leans very heavily on the work already done by the adorable characters in the game Here to Slay, which many of the Rem folks in the chat do know about, because that was an excellent game. It's a card game by the same folks who did Unstable Unicorns, and I think the T-Fury people as well. So it's just that like cute animal style, but they were all like, the foxes were rangers and the squirrels were bards and the bunnies were wizards, and they were all so cute that I would like to make little adventurers that are different animals. Thomas would like to point out that they do piercing damage in Dungeons & Dragons, and it will surprise you who doesn't know that. Derica might be someone who doesn't know that. If you wish to know to what this refers, I highly recommend checking out the D&D episodical streams on twitch.tv/masterofrem tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. Garbage Goat will be DMing Descent into Avernus. Last episode, the party spent maybe 30 minutes trying to figure out the exact price of a magical pan and how much they should pay to keep their horses at this tavern. And then literally saw the name of the character they were looking for, who was a tiefling, on their office. Walked into the office, saw a tiefling, and did not realize who it was. So that's the kind of energy that you will experience if you log in to twitch.tv/masterofrem. Ooh, maybe it's twitch.tv/remalternus. Please let me know if I'm sending people to a link that doesn't exist. But I will be there in the chat, laughing. But yes, Derica, who's a player, perhaps forgot what piercing damage was, and that rapiers did it, and it was very funny. What I like to do with the little arms is, you see that there's like a little cutoff. Oh, it's 10 a.m. Central. It's definitely 11 to 1 Eastern. Thank you, Thomas. So I like to use that as a bit of a shoulder. I tried converting to Eastern, and then I used the times from Central as I was trying to do that, so I should never try to convert time zones in my head. I should just say the time that I do things. Man, I was about to log in at 10 a.m. tomorrow and be so sad. 10 a.m. my time, which is Eastern. It is Master of Rem. So, I would like to issue a correction. At 10 a.m. Central at twitch.tv/Master of Rem, you can see Garbage Goat and Derica and a gang of several hilarious people play Dungeons and Dragons. And watch me make fun of them in the chat. With love! Alright, the little armpit is done. Ha! Perfect. See what I mean? With just the little out. If it was stuffed, it would go like this, which is just a T-pose. But since it's not stuffed, it stays down. Here we go. And arm part 2. I'm gonna put it on like that to get the little shoulder in there. Sew it on. Again, this would be where some people would pin. But I have also made enough of these that I have seen the exact stitches I need to put things into. Ooh, this is an excellent song, but maybe not a vibe. There we go. Autoplay has cursed me. I think that was a Persona 4 song. Don't quote me on that. If you do want to see the music we're listening to today, it is linked in the description. It is from Persona 5. A very good game. With very good music. Alright. We have our two-armed fencer. Not two-handed. Well, they do have two hands, but they're not fencing with two hands. Because to my knowledge, that's not allowed. Alright. A little friend. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit with the tail. Normally what I would want to do with the tail is do the same thing as the arm, but skinnier. But you saw me struggling with the arm as small as that was. So what I'm going to do instead is create a really long strip and then add a little bit to it and then wind it back around, and boop, there's the tail. All right. Now, what I'm about to do, which I'm not going to explain in great detail because it will take an abundance of time we do not have, is called a foundation stitch. So usually what you do is you chain, so like little loops, or one big loop for the magic circle or magic ring, and then you work back into those. But a foundation chain is just making a foundation as you go, so you can work it along. It is really nice for when you don't know how long you need something to be, because if you make a chain, that's not the exact length that it's going to be after you put stitches in it. And so if you hold up a chain to something and it's the perfect length, once you add like single crochet or double crochet to that chain, it will be completely different. So if I'm making like the piece for something and I know it has to be a certain length, but I don't know exactly what, I will just go with foundation chain so that I can hold it up and say, That is not enough of a tail. You could also do math, but I don't. Okie dokie. I think we're getting close. I think this is a good tail size. What I want from a tail is to be able to see it from the front, like have it be a decent tail. I'm going to add 2 more. Ha, ha, ha. All right. And when you're working in rows, you do a little chain on the end. And instead of working this way, you flip it around and work the other way. So I'm going to do maybe 3 rows total, and then sew them all together in a little tube, like a little straw. And then I will sew the end together so it is not a little straw and is a little tail instead. So I think 3 rows should do it. Oh, I believe in this tiger. I think this tiger can come to fruition before 4 p.m. today. Clap your hands if you believe in this tiger. Either this amount of rows or 1 more. Ooh, I think this is it. I think this is perfect. It's a skinny little tiger tail. Tiger tail is also, I think, the name of like a workout equipment thingy. Oh, Thomas believes in this tiger. Thank you, Thomas. Oh, I knew someone would. They say thank you for believing in me when no one else would. Okay. So I'm sewing together the tip of the tail. Oops. So that doesn't look like a straw. And I'm going to sew these 2 ends together. I like to hook just 1 little loop from one. Oh boy. And then 1 little loop from the next one. And then together. This is not a whip stitch. This is a different kind of stitch that I do not recall the name of. I do find it funny that an individual unit in crochet, embroidery, punch needle, knitting, and cross stitching are all called stitches, even though they're very, very different. Like, add 2 stitches means something in each of those crafts, but it means a totally different thing. Like, there's no knitting and purling in crochet. There's no daisy stitch in knitting. I have got my tiger by the tail. I actually just have my tail by the tail because it's not attached to the tiger yet. I'm now realizing that I should probably add stripies before I attach it to the tiger. So, I shan't do that just yet. 10 minutes of making. Here's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to make orange ears, and then I'm going to felt some black onto them because I will be felting black onto everything else for the stripes. Thank you, Felted Flying Fox, once more. So usually, where did he go? usually for an ear, I will make a base of like 4 stitches or so. I can look up what I've done in the past, but I would have to look it up on my phone, which is currently acting as a camera. Hopefully what I want to do is use like an external webcam or something else, or maybe get an iPad, like an older iPad or something else with a screen that I can use to have like patterns and stuff out in front of me. But alas. Alright. Oh no. I was going to make... Let me check the sketch. So black was going to be the outside and then white was going to be the inside. There was no orange involved at all. Silly me. So we'll be felting white onto these ears. So yes, there will be a day, if all goes well, where I have some little device that I can look at. It's going to make the layout a little crowded with the drinks and the craft, although I suppose they would just replace this notebook. So that is fine. I've also been considering, and I've done a little bit of this already, like making little booklets and little cards that have like patterns on them, and like printing them out and having them with me. And then also like people can buy patterns that are in little booklets. Oh, Thomas does something similar with a Kindle while woodworking, which is very cool. It seems silly that you would need... At first I was like, why would you need something for woodworking? But then I realized you have to have like the absolute exact measurements. And if like you're off by 1/8 of an inch and you've got your 2 pieces that you need to put together, then if you're off, you just can't. Like in fiber arts, you can fudge things a little bit. Woodworking, you cannot fudge things. So you would need measurements and things. I suppose that does save a lot of paper too. That's pretty nifty. I would not have thought to put patterns and things on a Kindle. I have a Kindle. Big brain. I might just upload some PDFs of my own patterns to my Kindle. I don't love Amazon though, so something to ponder. I already own this Kindle. I did buy it from eBay, not Amazon, but you know, they got their money in the end. I have covered up the logo on the back with the sticker of the bookstore I used to work at. Boop. Aw, yeah, that's a good look. But it's very clearly a Kindle device. So perhaps next week you will see a Kindle with my little patterns on it, and perhaps you will not. Who knows? If anyone has things they would particularly like to see next week has not been decided yet. The week after is Final Fantasy VII characters. But next week is a mystery. Thomas also never uses the Kindle for anything else. Well, he does use the notebook to prop things up. I have definitely used this as a coaster, which is very clear on some of the pages. Or like a place to set things. I do not think this is big enough to prop something up. It's a little too tiny. All right. And with that, every single piece of the tiger individually is finished. And so then we must put it together I love this fencing sword idea, but for time's sake, we will sadly not be able to do it this week. Maybe next week is sword week. Alright, here's our little felting block station. Here's the felting needle. There we go. Gonna put white on the ears first, and then sew on the ears, I think. For those who are currently tuned in, I think I will go until this tiger is done. If you need to go right at 4, I will not even be close to offended. But I do want to finish it out, both for my own satisfaction, because I'm going to finish this tiger today, whether it's being filmed or not, and for folks who aren't available at this time for the live stream, who can come in and watch it later, will get the satisfaction of seeing this beautiful fencing tiger completed. Now usually for a big section like the middle of an ear, you would not use yarn. You would use like wool roving, which is just like fluff basically. But I have gotten into the habit of using yarn, particularly since I am very picky with my colors. So I would like the tiger ear white to be the exact same shade of white that I use for like a bunny. That's just my own little thing. Ooh, one of the bad things about using these less than ideal scissors is I will have a lot of extra floof to fluff. Floof to fluff. Delightful. Oh boy, that is a lot of floof. To fluff. Aha. Tiger ear. Doot, doot, doot. Tiger ear part 2. Huh. So you can see some of it poking through the back. So I don't know if that's the technique I'm going to use for all of them. But I do like it, because it's just like a little point in there. When I usually do like 2 crochet triangles, it gets a little thick, because there is some thickness to these. And they're not quite as curly and cute. Ay-ya! Do not stab yourself with a felting needle. Because of the little barbs on it, it hurts a lot. Which is usually why felters have thimbles. But since I am only an amateur felter, I do not have thimbles. Some felters also have little tools to hold down their stuff that are not fingers. Might get me one of those, because that feels better than having, I don't know why, thimbles just have always, I don't like gloves, I don't like bracelets. There's a video of me at like 3 years old getting dressed up for Easter, and I'm just holding out my hands like with this look on my face because my mom had me wear gloves and I did not like them. So thimbles are not gonna do it. All right, we are right at 4. So if folks do have things they need to get to, please do that. Do not feel obligated. This video will remain on YouTube when it is complete, and you can see the final tiger. Okay, that's a little bit smaller than the other one, I think, but it'll do just fine. What I think I'm gonna do for the tail is like a candy cane style spiral because the tail is so thin. And I think I'm going to have the stripes be the exact same width as the yarn. See ya, Thomas, thank you for joining. Again, I'm running into the hands blocking problem. I have never felted something this thin before. But I think that I like it. If Loop logs back in, I'll have to ask them any pro tips. It's coming together. The stripes are a little further apart than I like, but at least they're consistent, which I think is more important than if I suddenly made them closer together partway down. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit before I snip it off. Wow, I really should have real scissors with me the next time I do this. So that I can tuck this in to the back. Beautiful. All right, ears done, tails done. Now, the most important part. You cannot have a tiger without stripes. I think I'm gonna do a wind for the arms and maybe strips for the body. I'm gonna start. All right, there you go, prepared for surgery. I'm gonna start on the back just so that as I'm figuring it out, if something looks a little bit off, at least it'll be on the back. Oop. Oh man, I really do need better scissors. One moment. Pro tip, wire cutters. Oh my goodness, I did not think that would work. Nidge. Yeah, I think having the strips too, because like tiger stripes do have ends to them, it will make it look somewhat more realistic. All right. Oh, I think this head's gonna have to hang. Boy. I'm doing my best to angle my hands so that you can see what's happening. There. There's a stripe. I'm gonna like make this go back over all of the stripes and make them firmer once this stream is complete. But for the time being, just want you to see what it's gonna look like in the end. Ooh, and I'll trim that later too. We got some stripes. Yeah, as I'm doing this, I think for the like final tiger, because this is technically like a draft, even though it is, ooh, sorry, a completed plushie. I'm going to use embroidery for the body because that could very easily be a single stitch and take up less time. And then felt the little spiral tail, because that I wouldn't have no idea how to do an embroidery. Because I wouldn't want to do a mix of color changing and felting or embroidery because the thicknesses of the lines would be different. Because the thickness of a line in a color change would be the thickness of a row, whereas the thickness of a line in felting or embroidery would be just the thickness of the yarn. Alright, gonna go back over. As cute as felting is, it is also somewhat violent because of all the stabbing. Alright. I'm gonna make an executive decision right here, right now. Embroidery. My dearest apologies to Felted Flying Fox, but I do not think felting is the way that this will go. Alright. So now for a point of comparison, I'm going to try to repeat the exact same pattern on the front as I did on the back. But this time, using embroidery instead. So the best way that I have found to embroider something on an already stuffed amigurumi is to have like a little thing go out on the end, and once you're done with all your weaving in and weaving out, you draw it out on the end and then tie those two together so that there are no extra little bits hanging out, even if they're hanging out on the inside, because I always worry that something could happen. Yeah, this is a lot faster, and it doesn't have the little floofums on the end, so I'm glad I started with the back. So I think what I'm going to do for this little stripe is have one here and then a little one over there later. There we go. I'm going to weave this up and into the arm, if it'll let me. There we go. Stripe, 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 stripe. That looks pretty fun. I'm gonna do like a candy cane wrap with stitches. Well, this is quite fun. Whoop. It's going every which way. Okay. Gonna poke that up as however we can get it in there. Oh man. Floof. There we go. And then the other arm, same thing, I think. So loop it around, do a little stitch, and loop. Do it around, do a little stitch, loop it around, do a little stitch, loop it around, do one big stitch where I poke all the way into the head. Ah! Yeah, sometimes in the sewing and whatnot of plushies, you do have to smoosh them a little bit, which is less than ideal. Here we go. This is a tiger. I can tell. Okay. I think if I spiral this all the way up, I will have enough. So I'm going to turn the head as I embroider in and out to make little stripes. Excuse me. Now I'm just freehanding. Adding a stripe here. Adding a stripe on the back, going a little diagonal so it doesn't look like I'm working from just like a chart. It looks a little more natural. I do find that in nature there are definitely things that are organized, like honeycombs and things like that, but there are a lot of things that are like kind of random looking, and that tends, going along with that randomness when you're trying to replicate nature, tends to make it look more natural. Well, this sure is a tiger. All right. I think I need another little stitch in there because this looks really open. Oh, I did not leave myself enough space. Okay. Oops, I guess now that I've hummed a little bit, you can see how in or out of sync the music is. So we will leave a little bit hanging out inside. But I'll give it some space to move around. So I'm just going to start right where the last one ended so that these two string nubbins can be tied together and then pulled back into that head. So, pull. There we go. Sometimes when you embroider or sew anything with like really big long strands, you do end up catching like an arm. All right, let's get a short guy in there. I'm gonna fill in this space. I think that looks better. We're getting a little avant-garde with this. Which I think that could be a big stripe, maybe? Nah. Oh, I think I may have had too much caffeine. Look, my hand. Alright, well. We'll be done in a moment. And I will eat some food. And I will no longer simply have caffeine and craft enthusiasm. Okay. Funnily enough, I think the back looks a little better than the front. But that's okay. Yeah. This is easier and cleaner than it felt. Thank you, Rick. I feel a little bad for doing a whole thing of showing everyone all the different techniques and having them choose. And then saying, no, actually, you were wrong. But I did try the suggestion. It turned out to not be as effective as previously imagined. And that's all part of the process. Yes, this would have taken a very long time, where I too felt it. Oh yeah, for these little stripes. I'm gonna try and weave this in. Now we have 2 major steps. Also, hello and thank you for joining. I do not know how long you've been around, whether you've been quiet in the chat or not, but I'm very happy to have you here. Okay. We are going to tie the tail right on over this, so let's see how removable it is. Oh, very. Tail time. Oh, I love this little springy tail. That is so fun. I first used this tail technique when I was making the character of Raymond from Animal Crossing. Back when the game first came out and everyone was inside playing the game. I was inside crocheting characters because I had neither a Switch nor a Wi-Fi connection. I used my precious mobile data every week to get on Discord and very little else, so I did a lot of crocheting. I made a Raymond, I made an Anka, I made a hippo, I made Taco from TV, and Angus McDonald, and Megan Rapinoe, and Waldo from Where's Waldo, and Lion from Steven Universe, like in the 2 to 4 weeks that I was inside. Oh, working and watching. Thank you for bringing me into your workplace, Rick. I will try to make it worth your while. We are just finishing a tiger. Hopefully just finishing a tiger, unless something goes colossally wrong. I do hope you enjoy the Persona 5 music as well, because I know you are a big fan. There we go. All right. Now, I'm glad. Oh, I also made Bob the cat. I did make Bob the cat. How could I forget? And Rick has it in his home now. All right. I think the ears are gonna make it. I think my lessons from today that I have learned myself, I do not mean to prescribe this to anybody, have been Be willing to switch partway through. Always give yourself extra time, because we are now at 4:21. Blaze nothing. Give yourself extra time while you are working on things. Be willing to change partway through if you find something that works better. If you drink green tea and are very caffeine sensitive, maybe you should eat right after. This has nothing to do with crafting, it's just a thing I learned today. All right. Things take longer to do when you're explaining them as you do them. This will be extremely relevant for future streams. These seem like good lessons. All right, so I'm gonna push the hook through to grab the little ends and pull it right back through so that they are floating around on the inside of this plush. And one ear remaining. We are so close, everybody. Thank you for everyone who clapped their belief in this tiger. It was much appreciated. The tiger believes in you too. The tiger does wish that they had a fencing sword, but that's okay. I can give them a little needle. Oops. I sewed through the little white as well, so you'll be able to see the stitch a lot more easily, but that is okay. Here he comes. Oh, I love this song. Okay, the ears look pretty even. I was gonna say, this looks like a cat, and then I remembered that a tiger is a cat. Oh, oh boy, yes, the caffeine lesson is learned from experience. I was so excited to sit down and craft and make some tea that I did not think about the sheer amount of caffeine that I would be ingesting. That's why teapots are so dangerous, because it's just like, oh, I'll make myself a little pot of tea, but that's like multiple cups of tea, each of which contains the same caffeine as a single cup of tea. So you'd think we would know. Ah, here's this lovely tiger. It is a fencing tiger. Trying to think what would be a good weapon. Here. The fencing tiger. I think that I will name him Jack, after Kate Bishop's stepdad, who is also a fencer. Jack the fencing tiger. Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining this first official stream, the as yet unnamed Jana T. Craftly stream. If you have ideas for future streams and things I could do, other things you want to see, or maybe a name for the as yet unnamed stream, please do share them in the comments of this video or on social media or elsewhere. As a announcement, I am knitting for 12 hours straight come February 12th in the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon to raise money for Meals on Wheels and other like food insecurity based charitable organizations in a fundraising event led by Laura Nelkin. And you can, if you are willing to donate and have the means to do so, I would love your support for my poor hands over those 12 hours. You can find the link in the description below and support me in the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon. I also have socials and all of that jazz in there. We're where you can stop by, say hi, and I will see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat station.